Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jordan with the Laundromat Resource Podcast. This is show 169, and I am pumped that you are here today because today, back on the show is the one, the only Andrew Cunningham. We have a great time talking about all kinds of stuff, as always. You know, Andrew and I, we can always talk laundry all day long if we need to. And the only thing that cut us short today, we'd probably still be talking if he didn't have a yoga class. So look forward to this episode. Tons of very practical stuff going on today with Andrew. Another great time. Real quick, today's fast lane tip. Did you know that we have a calculator that you can try out at laundromatresource.com? Go to the resources tab and go to calculators. There is a calculator there. If you're doing pickup and delivery or drop off laundry, that will help you calculate your costs per pound of laundry to do there. That way you can know how much it costs you and you can make sure that you are charging appropriately. So go check that one out if you're doing pickup and delivery or drop off service and see how much it is that you're charging and how much margin you're making or not making. Hopefully you're making good money, but find out for sure with that calculator. All right, let's jump into it with the one and only human encyclopedia, Andrew Cunningham. The one, the only Andrew Cunningham back on the podcast. We've done a bunch of Q&As lately, but we have not done a podcast episode in a while. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I am excited.
I like that.
Any Monday morning I wake up and I get to just jump on a call with you and talk laundromats. It's just, that's a good week waiting to happen.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It's
man. That's a lot of fun, which you wouldn't really expect because, you know, we're talking about laundromats, but you know what? It's a good time. It's always a good time with you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Dude, catch me up just a little bit here before we jump into it. What's been going on in your world?
Really busy. It's an interesting market out there. There's some, topics we'll probably cover. There's some natural barriers or stumbling blocks that I'm encountering that I'm talking with other brokers about or other buyers and sellers. And, you know, there's some impediments that are preventing us from moving forward a little bit quicker than we can. We'll probably clear up a few things today on a couple of those topics. But all in all, it's I'm really busy and I'm enjoying it and wouldn't have it any other way.
It's good stuff. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, let's spend just a few minutes here talking about kind of the market right now. You know, there's a lot of buyers trying to buy right now. What do you, I mean, I'll tell you what I'm seeing in the market, but what are you seeing in the market, you know, around the country? And
well, yeah,
what's the prognosis for buyers right now?
What's that?
What's the prognosis for buyers right now?
I think that they have to reset their expectations. I think that a majority of the buyers that I'm engaging and having conversations with feel that they should be able to come into this market and have a set of valuations that for the most part they can be pretty much spot on, but the multiples that they want to buy at, they're looking at buying at a 3x or 4x, and I haven't seen any 3x's and certainly not many 4x's. And so they lose focus and they say, oh, maybe it's not for me. And the reality of it is that a lot of 5Xs can become 4Xs if you know how to operate a laundromat, shave expenses and what have not. You can turn that bottom number down and get more cash flow out of it. And, you know, some tweaks you can make in operationally that you can go from like I said, a 5X to a 4X, which isn't far. It's 20 to 25%. And it's doable, but somehow they lose focus and they think they should be able to buy at a 4X. And I don't believe that the market is a 4X right now. I still think the market's a 5X. Now, you may be lucky and find a couple of 3Xs or a guy trying to liquidate it, but you also have to consideration a lot of other variables in your calculation of 4X and 5X. Are they properly allocating for replacement of equipment? Are they willing to go halfway? Or are they willing to say, you know, I've got to... What's that?
I said, nobody does that.
Well, but that's the point.
Yeah.
So there is an educational process that has to happen not only with the buyer, but with the seller. That you've got a really nice laundromat here and you got a decent lease and those other things work, but you've got, you know, setting aside dryers, because I think dryers fall under a different category when it comes to age. Your average front loader is going to last you 12 to 15 years, depending upon the brand and what have not. And then it becomes economically unfeasible to have it, and you need to replace it, and then you get depreciation, and you get to start your, tax, all the stuff all over again. But you actually need to allocate for that equipment, and equipment is not cheap in today's market. Most new stores, most 2,500 square foot new stores are clicking along at $1 million to $1.2 million.
Big numbers that we're not really used to.
No.
In this market, which is, it, and not only that, but money is more expensive than it has been for a while too.
Right.
In terms of the interest rates are higher. I know they keep trying to tell us that they're coming down, but until I see some significant droppage, color me skeptical.
Right. So we're still at what, 10.7?
Somewhere in the ballpark of there. Yeah.
Yeah.
September 2024, in case you listen to this later down the line.
Maybe 8.
Yeah.
8 years, but 7's about the litmus test for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I see the same thing, right? Like the traditional, and I still see it on like the Facebook groups and stuff where people are like, don't buy for more than 3X and all that stuff. And I think there's probably some maybe rural small town markets where you can get them the 3 to 4X still, but they're going to need work and all that stuff. And there's a lot of questions around that. And in fact, whenever I do consulting calls where somebody brings me a laundromat that's in the 3 to 4 range right now, I'm immediately looking for, is that lease too short? Is the lease too high? How much is it going to cost to replace that equipment? There's something wrong. Something's wrong.
Right.
And the thing that may be wrong, maybe if you're very lucky that the seller is not informed about current prices, but
right.
More likely there's something going on that's making that price lower there. So, but I agree with you completely that we're at a period where we're resetting expectations here in terms of multiples and in terms of returns and in terms of how these things are operated even. Listen, until recently, it's been a very hey, this is a hands-off business. I think more and more it's becoming a more and more hands-on business for more owners. Not that you can't run it as an unattended laundromat on the side. You still can do that. But more and more, I see more hands-on owners coming in too, which I think is another expectation that should be shifting. I don't know. Do you agree with that, or you disagree with that?
No, I agree with that. I think that it's truly the axiom: you get in, you get out of it what you put in it. Mm-hmm. And there are some people that get into it thinking that it's going to be a part-time business, and it's just an investment and what have not. And they will languish around the 20%, 18% ROI. Mm-hmm. And then there's a guy that gets in there and rolls up his sleeve and says, "I'm going to dedicate some time, effort, and energy to it." And he's clicking along at 23 to 27% ROI without even breathing. And then the next thing is I get the phone call, "Hey, what do I do about social media? What do I do about Yelp? What do I do about, Instagram? How do I do this? How do I get this? I'm looking at wash, dry, and fold. I'm not interested in so much in pick up and delivery, but I want to do drop off. And how do I, so all of a sudden it opens up that avenue of how do I generate more revenue? And you still have the guys who just say, yeah, I'm happy with what I have. Yeah. And so it's probably somewhere around, actually it's around a 50-50 at this stage that I can tell based on my clients.
Yeah. And I think that, I think it's shifting. I just see more and more owners coming in a little more ambitious and with a little more sophistication. I've said that a lot, but I just see more and more people coming in. And here's what's interesting, right? So, it kind of leads into this thing we were talking about before we hit record here. But, I did a poll a little while ago, and I said, hey, how many laundromats do you want to own? 1 to 2, 3 to 5, right. 10 plus. And 92% of the people who responded to that survey said, I bet you could guess if you're out there. Take a guess if you're out there. 10 plus, right? Wow. 92% of the people said 10 plus laundromats was their goal, right? And I do see a consolidation happening. I think more and more owners own more of the laundromat, or less owners own more of the laundromats. More owners own multiple laundromats, I think, than used to be the case. And now with the tools and resources that are available to us and people like you coming on podcasts and doing Q&As and stuff, I think it's more and more possible to get there. But the roadmap to 10 plus laundromats is,
it's a beast.
It's a beast. It's not a passive thing we're looking at here.
No.
If you're trying to get to 10 plus laundromats.
And you run into, you might find an owner that has 2 or 3 and I'm talking regional.
Mm-hmm.
National, you can find guys that have chains of 8, 10 stores that you can pick up that they're willing to sell and what have not. You can do a valuation on that. But for the most part, here in Southern California and in California, your multiple store owners may have 2 or 3 stores.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll sell them off one at a time, or they'll sell them off as a package. But you're only going to pick up 2 or 3.
I've been trying to buy portfolios lately, and it is hard to find them.
It's very hard.
And hard to lock them down. So if you're out there and you want to sell a portfolio, Jordan at laundromatresource.com.
Yeah. So it's difficult. It's difficult to find an owner with multi-stores who want to sell a chain. And then you have to go through the same process, only it's whatever the number of stores times that for the effort and the work that you need from the seller. And then what are you getting from the seller, and what are you relying on as information for income, which we could probably do a whole podcast on. Just what does it really mean to get a listing or to have a store that's saleable, and what are you supposed to get? So we're getting back to it. So you're going to end up probably in your lifetime, if you want 10 stores, you're probably going to have at least 5 escrows. You're going to end up being in 5. One will have 3, maybe 2 over here, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. But that's really, the way it is. And then for those in a market area that is more rural, more expansive, and your furthest one away is 2 hours, which is normal in the Midwest and what have not. And then it's how many employees do I need?
Mm-hmm.
Employees, how many managers do I need? I had the privilege of working with John Gorman, who was one of the founders of Taco Bell when we did Lucy's, and he said 5 is the magic number. 5 is what a manager can handle. 5 Taco Bells, that's it. Once you get to 6, you got to have another manager. And then what's their role? What are they primarily responsible for? And there's all, as well as I do, there's maintenance, there's collections, there's wash, dry, and fold, employees, supplies, accounting. The list goes on and on. Who's going to be responsible for it? What hat are you going to wear? What app do you have to get rid of in order to run more efficient?
Yeah, well, and that brings up a really interesting point because, somebody said this and it stuck with me. Actually, I think it was somebody from Kiasoft said this, and this really stuck with me. He's like, really, because we were talking about this exact thing, and really what he was saying is, at that point, you're turning your small business into a small company, right? And
Correct.
How it starts out when you buy 1, 2, 3 laundromats, for the most part, you might have attendants and you might have laundry processors and stuff, but other than that, for the most part, you're running all the other roles. And you may even be doing some of those roles too, like the wash, dry, fold, all that stuff, right? You're doing everything. You're wearing all the hats. You're doing, all the management stuff. You're hiring, you're firing, you're managing your employees. Maybe you're doing marketing, you're, all the things. And as you start to grow, you can't do all the things anymore, right? So you as a person actually have to evolve and change and grow in order to go from somebody who's owned no laundromats to 1, 2, 3. And then again, you have to evolve and change and grow to get to that bigger portfolio. Maybe it's 10 or, 5 or 10 or whatever it is. And your organization is going to have to evolve and grow and change each of those phases also. And it's a little bit of a process here. And I would contend that it's very difficult and probably very rare that somebody who's owned no businesses before or no laundromats before, I think it'd be very rare to just hand that person 10 laundromats, a portfolio of 10 laundromats, and for them to thrive there, because there's a growth and a change that has to happen through going some of the growing pains, the learning pains of owning multiple.
Right.
Kind of interesting. But okay, listen, let's just say my goal is 10 plus. Number one, how feasible is that in this market for most people? And then number two, if it's at all feasible, if I was saying, hey, Andrew, point me in the right direction, what's the path to 10 plus laundromats? What advice you got there?
Wow. Well, right now I see other some markets are better than other markets. I think the Southern California market is saturated with potential locations that are overpriced and that all need new equipment. So there's a retooling going on here that's probably they've never seen before. I'm sure that the manufacturers would like to get a bite of that.
Yeah.
Owners are not replacing equipment. They're going out there and selling their store on a multiple of a 5x without allocating any reduction in purchase price for the lack of equipment or the equipment that they're using, or they're not allocating the proper refunds or sources in their P&L to compensate for the fact that those machines need to be repaired all the time. So for how to get there, it's a struggle here in Southern California. I think you can do it. It's just going to take you a lot longer than you would anticipate. I think in other states, Texas, for example, Florida, for another example, there are a lot of good laundromats, solid ones that have 7-year-old equipment, 8-year-old equipment that have been retooled that the seller's willing to sell as chain. I think you'll find more chain operators outside California, as an example, that are willing to sell their chain for 3, 4, 5 stores than here in Southern California. I think there's more single proprietor stores in Southern California than there are in most any place else. I think you have more multiple stores in other states. And so, what I'd be looking for is I would search to find out if there is whatever multiple store you can find owner, and I would start to pick on that and start to learn the things that you need to learn in order to buy a multiple store chain. Because there's a lot of different things that you do. They're all the same, but they're 3 times or 4 times more than what you would anticipate if it was just a single operator.
Yeah. But one thing, I like that advice, because one thing that's interesting is that when you go that route, if you can buy a small portfolio of laundromats, yes, you're buying those assets. You're buying the laundromats. You're buying the cash flow. Hopefully they're cash flowing. But you're also buying the systems that are in place to run that small portfolio. So that can give you a little bit of a head start. That can shorten that learning curve a little bit if there are people in place that know how this owner at least has been operating this system. And then from there, like you were mentioning earlier, you can look for efficiencies within that and begin to evolve the business to accomplish whatever your next one, increase cash flow or scale bigger or both or whatever. But at least you have like a starting platform of those systems that you can learn from that previous owner. Now, that may be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the previous owner and their systems, but could be a good advantage.
It could be. It could very much be a good advantage on that. I have a couple of things that I look for in a laundry. Lease, financials, equipment, location, growth, and opportunity. And a lot of times, I put a lot of the first 3. I'm really heavy. Lease is primary for me, financials, and then equipment. And after those other 3 are there, but of the other 3, the opportunity, there's what I call opportunity costs, and some people don't realize that, and that is you've been looking for a year, which is not hard to do. You've been looking for 6 months, a year, and one comes up and the seller's adamant that he wants $50,000 more. And in some cases, it may be worth overpaying the $50,000 to take that laundry off the market to get your first store and to get you in the business. It's not something that happens all the time, but sometimes you have to realize if I want to get in, I'm going to have to make some sacrifices to get in. And one of those is what I call opportunity, because they don't come that often. I've got you and I both have clients that we've been working with for over a year. Mm-hmm. And they have probably brought us 3 or 4 laundromats that we both looked at, and we said, "Yeah, the valuation, yeah, but he's got to come down $100,000 because the equipment's not there." And at that point in time, I have a saying: you're buying a payment. You're not buying a purchase price. So you have to get that out of your mentality. You're buying a payment. What is that extra equipment going to cost you on a monthly basis? And then you add in utilities to that, because everything else is fixed in your store. The utilities are only variable. And you look at that, and if your payment's, $1,660 for $100,000 at 10% for 7 years. So you add 20% to that, 25, you're up to, so now you're at $2,000. So it's going to cost you $2,000 a month to put new equipment in your store. Mm-hmm. You need to generate that much to pay the utilities in order to pay that payment. And you look at it, you go 1660, and you go 2000, and you go, so I need 30 new customers to come into my laundromat in order for me to justify that payment. And you look at it and you go, that's not a lot. Can I achieve that? Yes, you can achieve it. And how do we go about it? And then you set about your marketing program. And this is what you and I talked about earlier, which is, here comes the hat. Now you're the marketing guy, and then you're the ops guy, and then you're the repair guy. And do you really want to be a repair guy? Do you really have the time to be a repair guy? Oh, sure, I'll unjam a coin slot, or I'll fix this, and I'll rehook up this for the reader system. But for the most part, you don't want to be a mechanic. You want a mechanic to handle mechanic duties. You want to pass off some of those responsibilities to other people so you can stay at high level to look for your next acquisition. And your job now is to oversee all of it and just tweak. Oh, another rule. I have a rule. I don't do anything at a laundromat for the first 30 to 60 days. I run it exactly as they had it. Now, unless you have a conflict of employees or if there's an issue in there, I keep everybody in place for 30 to 60 days. Number one, to see if it was what they said it was, if it was represented truly, because you're going to see it in the first 30 to 60 days. And then the next thing is, if you want to change, you can make your changes after that. But you won't know if the seller was telling the truth or not if you get rid of everybody on day one and put all your new people in there. And then you're like, well, geez, this isn't working, or that's not working. Well, they're not trained either. So now you're going to have to train them. Mm-hmm. And you set yourself behind the 8 ball. Don't leave it alone for 30 to 60 days. Give yourself a little breathing room that you're going to get into this comfortable seat. Well, I don't know if it's going to be comfortable, but you're going to get into this saddle and ride this Bronco, and you're going to go, okay, well, let me fire the stable hands. Let me fire everybody. No. Keep it. Leave it alone. Work for 30 to 60 days, even 90 days, until you understand like the back of your hand, and then go ahead and make your tweaks.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, because it's like that, but I'm curious what you would say about this. Let's say I own 3 laundromats already.
Okay.
And I buy another one. Are you still doing that? Or are you saying I have the playbook with my other 3 that are...
Oh, I'm still doing that. Okay. Absolutely. Now, It doesn't mean I won't bring a lead over to watch the play, but that synergism is still going to work out. Absolutely, because I want to see if what I bought is what the seller represented. And I can't do that honestly without everything to remain in place. The only thing that got replaced is the name on the wall and money. I don't want to change anything. That doesn't mean I won't, and that doesn't mean that there are circumstances where you have to make a change. I'm just saying, if you don't mess with it. It did fine. He sold it to you just exactly as what he said. Now let's prove that they're telling the truth.
Look, I'm gonna question you.
Devil's advocate. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know, because I mean, this is interesting because I would say, well, does it matter? Or to rephrase the question, like, does it matter if what the seller at this point you own it, right? So then the natural question is, well, what happens? Because I think this is a huge fear that people have that keeps them from acting on buying their first laundromat in particular, right? Which is, what happens? Let's say they take your advice, they buy a laundromat, and 30 or 60 days later, they find out it's not what the seller said. What now?
Well, good question. One is,
thank you.
Did you buy it through a broker, or did you buy it directly from the seller? Did you have somebody that was coaching you on the sidelines to help you understand the pitfalls, or did you figure that after your first purchase of the first 3 stores that you bought that you didn't need any help? Well, and everybody's
they didn't have us helping, I'll tell you because we would not have allowed this.
They didn't at least pick up the phone and make a phone call. So the question is that, yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is everybody's afraid to pull the trigger. Everybody's afraid to pull the trigger until they pull the trigger. And then once they pull the trigger, they're going to go, oh, my God, how do I know it's what they say it is? Well, if you have someone that you can talk to and walk you through it, a previous owner or a buddy who owns stores, or, a broker or a consultant or whatever, that can kind of help you walk through it. But if it's bad in 30 to 60 days, you're going to know it. But how does it look if you were to argue that, if you were to fight that? And someone were to say to you, well, what'd you do when you found out about it? Well, I fired everybody. Whoa, time out. You fired everybody before you found out that you had a problem? Well, how does that stand up to any scrutiny? Well, no. I ran it exactly as they ran it for 30 to 60 days, and it didn't do the right thing. Okay, now you have an argument. You have a good case. Mm-hmm. But if you mess with it and go off reservation, then they turn around and go, well, you went off the reservation, and that's why it happened. At least that's a plausible answer. So I kind of like to keep things clean as possible in the beginning, and I recommend to my clients, hey, if you can avoid changing anything for now, avoid it. You have enough on your plate with returns, understanding collections, when to collect, when that system needs to be online, whether it's a card store or a coin store. You need to monitor the employees on pickup and delivery or drop off. You want to make sure that's the first thing. You want to make sure they're doing it right. Well, how do you know they're doing it right? Well, you don't know they're doing it right. You need to find somebody that'll help you to tell you what is right. You need to look at your podcasts. I'm sure you've got at least, I don't know, I think your number's up to 130. What are you at now?
Almost 160.
Okay. And of those, you've got to have at least 30%, 40% wash, dry, and fold.
Oh yeah, tons.
Okay, so start going down your list of there and listen and watch. But most of them don't, and they go, well, I missed that one, or I didn't understand it. But so for me, it's steady Eddie. It is the tortoise does win the race, truly does. And it's a methodical step process that if you follow through with it, you may be able to jump some steps if you're methodical about what you're doing. But if you take the shotgun approach, you're going to be scrambling no matter what, and it's going to be very trying for you.
Yeah.
So I recommend you have a game plan. You go in there to acquire it, and you acquire 3 stores. You do the same thing on store 1 that you do for store 2 and 3.
Yep. You
have a process. When's collections? Now you're altering your collection days. Now you've got this whole schedule now you're going to pick up. And you're going to pick up on a 3-store chain. If you bought a 3-store chain and you're an individual guy, you're going to want one more person. You're going to pick somebody in those 3 stores to be your lead.
Yeah. I think that's great. And the way I like to phrase it is, hey, work the system and then the system works, right? Like you
Correct.
can't, and success does not happen on accident. Right?
No.
Success in this business, or really any business, it does not happen on accident. I think it's one of the big lessons I learned when I bought my first laundromat and everything went south on me so fast. And I was like, what is happening here is, I followed the playbook that was sold to me, which was buy the laundromat and collect coins once a week. And you will grow incredibly wealthy and,
right.
Everybody will fawn over you and you'll have all the time in the world people to feed you grapes or whatever, right?
Sure.
And didn't work out like that, and it was because that requires that does happen for people sometimes. It does, yes. But if you count on that happening, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt, like I did inadvertently, because success does not typically happen on accident. You have to have a system, work the system, and then the system works for you and works in your direction. So I think that is super solid advice, especially for anybody who's looking to buy a laundromat, but also for anybody who's looking to scale their portfolio or their service side, their pickup and delivery and drop off. I think it's applicable for all of those.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Let's flip the tables.
Okay, yeah.
Let's flip the tables.
You want to talk sellers or what?
Yes. Let's flip the table. So now you're a seller. Now you got the chain of stores. And you're eyeing the prize at the end of the rainbow going, I've been doing this for 9 years. I'm tired. I'm out. I want out. What do you need to do? Well, you need to assess each store individually unto themselves. And I'm not going to buy the argument that you don't have tax returns. You got a K1 for each location. I know how that works. And by the way, I only want the page 1 of your K1. I don't care for the rest of the stuff. I don't care that you pay for your daughter's orthodontist or whatever it is. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to see I just want to see that page 1 of that K1.
It's a marketing expense so that she can be your poster.
Everybody always does that. That's what it's for. Yeah. But the seller needs to actually start to prepare for the eventual sale. And so by doing so, it will probably awaken them to some things that they were or were not aware of. And when was the last time you looked at a really good P&L and saw what your business was really doing and how much fat was there, if there is any fat? And could you cut some, like I'm dropping DirecTV because it costs too much and I can stream what I want and I don't need the extra channels anyways. But that's okay. But that's the same thing in a laundromat. You look at it and you go, do I need that? Do I need that? Is that too expensive? Is there a return on that investment that I'm doing there? And you start to build your reservoir of data in order for you to be able to sell your chain. And so let's use a 3-store chain for as an example. I would recommend somebody, I want to see 18 months utility bills. So start collecting the utility bills. Start making copies of them. Put 3 different files, so that when you're finished and you call up a broker, which I would recommend using a broker on a multi-store chain, because you're going to maximize your profits. You're going to maximize your exposure to the public. You're going to be able to screen out the looky-loos, the ones who can't not afford it, but they're time wasters. And you want to streamline this, that you should have a broker in your corner. And basically, you're going to hand your broker 3 files that are probably 2 inches thick and say, store 1, store 2, store 3. And it's going to have all the data in that he or she will need: a copy of the lease, a copy of the utility bills, a copy of the business license, a copy of your P&L for the last 14 months. What's it look like? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? You may not even know that. You might not know that until you start to look at it and go, I didn't know my store was trending up 6.9%. Yes, it is. Or, geez, I didn't know it dropped 12% last year. I just collect the money and deposit it. Okay, because that's the standard apply for most sellers. So you're going to hand 3 books, 3 files to this individual that you have chosen to help you sell this asset. And they're going to sit down and they're going to do their valuation. And then you and that person's going to get together and you're going to talk about each store individually. But that's the way it should be done. Not some willy-nilly, I want to sell my laundromats and they net, combined net $200,000. And so, I'd like to get $1.6 million for it. And okay, but I got 30-year-old washers. No. So, but that's where it starts. It starts with an idea that I want to sell my chain to how do I put together books and records and information that will help me sell it? How do I make it as true and correct as possible? And then who do I talk to about a correct valuation for this in order for me to sell it? Because I think you've experienced this, I know I have in Southern California, is you look at a listing and you go, God, that looks like a great listing in Downey. And you go, great, I'll go take a look at it. And you look at it and you pull it up and you do all the stuff and you go, this is really good. If the numbers are true, this will be really good. Well, then you go to the store and you find out the equipment isn't what they say it was. And, they've got, 20-year-old washers throughout and 20-year-old dryers. And I can live with dryers. Dryers will last you a little while longer. It's not the end of the world. But the front loaders, the top loaders are your problem. And then you look at them and they haven't allocated anything for a reduction in the purchase price in order to sell it. So it becomes a stale listing. And then all of a sudden that listing's there for 30 and 60 and 90 days. Well, the reason why your laundromat hasn't sold, it was never priced right. Because if it was sold, if it was for $1, it would have sold instantly. So now it's between $1 and what you've listed it for, or what you think it's worth, and it just sits there and languishes. And then you get irritated with the broker, you get irritated with the industry, you get irritated with everybody because your expectations were completely out of whack because someone didn't sit you down and say, you have to allocate for these things. So that's where it goes sideways. And and most sellers are first-time sellers. No different than being a first-time buyer. It's all the same. If you want to sell it and it's worth selling and you're going to get some good money, then have the right files, have the right expenses, have the right paperwork so that when you talk with somebody, it's a slam dunk. If your store is properly priced, you will sell it in less than 30 days, and you will close the transaction in 60 to 70 days. Just like that. No questions asked.
And if you don't, shoot us an email or a call, and we'll tell you exactly why you're not.
Yeah, we'll help point it out. But yeah. I mean, that's really the truth.
Yeah, and I think you nailed everything except for one thing. Number one.
What did I miss?
2 things.
Yes.
very, very important things here.
Yeah.
Number one, never make any photocopies of anything, utility bills or anything. And number two, don't put any physical files on my desk or any other broker's desk. Make 3 digital files of all of these things so that I don't have to scan them all in. So that was the only thing that you missed.
I appreciate that.
Bringing you into the 2020s here. You know
Old school, sorry.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think all that stuff is great. So, right, if you're a seller, your goal is to sell for the most money possible. There's 2 ways that I see sellers going about this. One, I would consider the right way, and one I would consider the wrong way. The wrong way, which I see more often, unfortunately, and I'm sure you do as well, is not reporting some expenses or downplaying the condition of the equipment or saying, not having the inaccurate picture to provide to buyers. And I think that's what you're saying is like, those are the ones, yes, sometimes they sell, but a lot of times if there's somebody knowledgeable involved here, it's not going to sell, or it's not going to sell for the price that they're wanting, because that's not the right way to go about maximizing your return on your sale here. The right way of doing it is exactly what you're saying, which is, make it as sure a bet as possible. You can ask for more money if there's more certainty about your business. And I think that's a huge, huge point that nobody else is saying. I've never heard anybody else say that. But if you have 2 laundromats, both of them are netting, $200,000 a year, and both of them are asking $1 million at a 5x multiple for it, and one of them has bad books saying they don't have tax returns, yada, yada, yada. And the other one is like, here's exactly what you're getting. I'm paying people above the table, or I'm not, or whatever, but here's the outline. This is exactly the business. Which one are you going to go for? You're going to go for the sure bet. Well, guess what? If the not sure bet is asking for $1 million and the sure bet is asking for 1.1 or maybe even 1.2 million, guess what? That sure bet is probably still going to sell faster than that cheaper laundromat that's netting the same, but there's more uncertainty about that business. So if you're really trying to maximize, getting those books in line, getting all the documents that you need for your potential buyers, to have everything they need to have the full picture and to have confidence that the laundromat that you're saying is netting 200 is actually netting 200 and is going to continue to net 200 or more. You're going to maximize the price of the sale price of that laundromat. I think. Do you agree with that? You
I agree. No, I agree. I have a saying that the first day you own a laundromat is the first day you're selling it.
I like that.
You are collecting all the data for you to eventually sell that business. And for every scrap of paper you save, every collection you save, every little thing that you save, and you put it in a book and you just keep notes of it and you keep track of it, it will aid and abet in you selling that business down the line. And it will be a lot easier for you than you scrambling around with your head cut off trying to find what people are looking for and that you may or may not want to give up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I've done over 1,000 consulting calls now. You've probably done even more than that. And I will tell you that when I do a call with somebody who says, hey, I'm looking at this laundromat, and they send me the digital file, not the physical file.
Yes.
They send me the digital file with the information for us to look over together. I have this sense of euphoria when everything is just clean books and everything's matching and there's no immediate red flags. And you can tell the owner has pride of ownership and they've kept good, accurate records. And I feel so good. And I always comment this to these consulting clients, hey, this is one we need to really take a look at, because this is, somebody who's taking care of their business. And that's the kind of business you want to take over.
Right.
If your goal is cash flow, now, if you're trying to do a fixer-upper, maybe different. But if your goal is cash flow, you want to take over a business that has some pride of ownership. And the owner has shown that through clean records and giving you confidence that you're going to get exactly what they're selling.
I agree with you. I tell everybody that I talk to, if you find the unicorn, don't pass go, don't collect 200, offer on it right now, tie the darn thing up. And then let's go to work.
Yep. Yeah.
To prove it out.
Yep.
Because if it's good to you and it's good to me, I promise you it's good to a lot of other people, and it would be in your interest to tie that up as soon as possible. And tie it up, I basically mean you get to do your due diligence first. I'm not a proponent of opening escrow right away, putting up a deposit, and then letting it rely on the seller and the buyer to work it out whether or not the seller's telling the truth. So I try to, as much as possible, get the financial due diligence done prior to going into escrow. Escrow, I think, is just for financing and for a lease assignment. At least that's what I try to do.
Yeah, that's an admirable goal.
Yeah.
Easier said than done sometimes.
What's that?
Said easier said than done sometimes.
Easier said than done, but still, if you can. The main point here is that if you find something that looks too good to be true, tie it up. And then go out and determine if it is too good to be true or it's real.
Yeah. And again, going back to what you were saying, like most people buying a laundromat, it's their first time doing it. That is super scary for a lot of people. So the way that we navigate that is we add in proper contingencies to make sure that if the story the seller is selling you proves to not be true, you can get out of that or renegotiate or whatever you need to do at that point. But that does get scary for people where you're like, I have to act this quickly to get this laundromat, and I'm scared to death to do it. Number one, don't do it alone. And number two, have good contingencies in there to make sure that you're covered if things are not as advertised.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. I mean, listen, I know we could talk all day about laundromats and pretty much go nonstop, which I'm sure people will. Maybe we should do like an 8-hour just marathon one of these days where we just get on all day one day.
Well, we'd have to have a couch and some coffee. We could just sit there, put our feet up, and have a couple cups of coffee.
I would do that with you. I would come out to your place and we would set up some mics and a camera, and I would just do that with you. So if you ever want to do that,
truthfully, I wouldn't mind adding one or two other guests and just have a round table of.
You don't want to talk to me for 8
open topics.
I'm just kidding. That would be a lot of fun. We should do
that.
It
really would be because you get, number one, you get to draw on other people's experiences and what they're familiar with in their region, and I would do like West, Mid, and East, and mix it up, and then you get a grab bag, and then this one's talking about this, and he cues up a thought for the other guy, and he goes, "Oh, I got a story about that," and then you start to hear some real stories about, what's gone on and how it goes on. The other thing is, for all you history buffs out there, it wouldn't hurt if we started to actually gather data on, the history of this industry from all different perspectives. I know here. It started in about 55, and it was all top loaders, and it was dryers like you have in your house, and it was a nickel. And there were a half a dozen, and then it just grew from that. And there's players, there's characters, there's other things, and I'm not sure that we have enough history or we know enough history about this industry, and it might not hurt to just start to build a library of knowledge on that, and kind of start to build. Where did it go in the Midwest? Where was the first laundromat? Who did the first laundromat? East Coast, West Coast, and just start to see how this thing blew up.
I like that. Any historians out there that are interested in that, shoot me an email, jordan@laundromatresource.com. Connect you up with Andrew, and we can put together a game plan to make that happen. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was, it just, what you were saying made me think. I wonder, how like there's all this, I think it's less and less so, but over the last like 4 or 5 years, I've just seen a lot of like debate about payments, right? And quarters versus dollar coins versus going the digital payment stuff, right? And there's just like, it just feels like a lot of angst. Less so now, but still a little bit of angst in that. I wonder if the similar thing happened going from nickels to quarters. You know what I mean?
Remember, you had the coin slides.
Yeah, it's a pretty big jump going from nickels to quarters, and I wonder if there was like turmoil going on. We need a historian to.
I'm sure there was. That would be a good conversation to have.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea. We do need a historian or two.
Right. There's got to be some older guys out there that remember the past, or that their dad was in it and they followed up underneath their dad and what happened. I'm sure that there's a bunch of them, but it would be interesting to follow the history of where it is today.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I
Yeah.
that. Yeah, man. All right, listen, anything else you feel like we need to hit before we wrap this thing up?
No, I pretty much we covered the valuations. We covered what a seller needs to do. We talked about 3X, 4X, and 5X. That was the other thing. In the overall thing is that the new buyers into the industry, I think, have a distorted view of what the right return should be.
Yeah.
They're coming out of real estate. They have a lot of money, and they start to go in, and you start to help them out with the digital information they give you. And you get back to them, and you make your comments, and then they say, well, we were hoping to be able to pay X. And I'm like, yeah, not in today's market. The stores, I pegged the value at about 380, so I want to start around 320, and they're in 280, and I go, you guys, you're not going to buy it for a 3X or a 4X. It's just not going to sell. You can get it. If you get it for a 4X, I'll help you get to a 5X. Or you buy it for 5, I'll help you get to a 4. You can't just out the gate go out there, because those sellers are educated in what the market will bear, and they're not going to sell it for that. Then they get disgruntled and they say, well, I think we'll look for something else. And I go, I can't help you.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think part of the reason those multiples are driving up is because there are more kind of real estate investors, entrepreneurs digging into our space, which is good. I think it's a good thing for our industry, but it kind of reminds me of, how everybody hates Californians because we sell our super high priced houses over here and then we go move to Texas or Tennessee or Idaho or whatever, and then it drives their house prices up, right? It's kind of a similar thing where there's just people got money from other places and then they come into our industry and it drives things up. And I think, a lot of people are seeing that and are adjusting, but I think also a lot of people are not accepting that. they're not seeing that change and acknowledging sort of that shift in our industry. So I would be interested to hear from anybody who has a different opinion on this. Kind of there probably is some market dependent. I know there's some market dependent stuff that plays into that, but also I think the old 3 to 5X, I think it's more like 4 to 5.5 or 4.5 to 6 now is more of what I'm seeing. 4.5 to 5.
6 would have to be really super for me. 6 would have to be.
But I see them.
Have to be freestanding in an area where I didn't have any competition in most cities of 5 miles, and I'm doing really well, and it's the only game in town, and there's that opportunity, the last one I talked to you about, that says, I'll overpay for it because I'm going to get some nice cash flow, and it's not likely that someone's going to come in and spend $1.5 million to $2 million to put another laundromat in there to compete with me. And so, I'm going to overpay a little bit for it, but it's worth the paying for it.
Yeah, but I do see them.
I do.
I think not. I don't think that's an average deal, but I think 4.5 to 5.5 is kind of the new 3 to 5.
Yep.
And a lot, here in Southern California, New York, they're starting at 5, really.
Yeah.
I don't hardly see anything below, at least on the asking. You may be able to get them a little bit lower, but it's interesting times right now.
Very interesting.
But I still think, let me ask you before I give my opinion on this, because I'm curious what you think. Laundromats, is it still a good asset class? Is it still a good way to go, or did we miss the boat? If I don't have a laundromat yet, did I miss the boat on laundromats? Is it not a good investment anymore? Or
no, I think it's a great investment. I don't think the investment has changed. I think it's still a very solid investment. You still have a high percentage of renters with the housing the way it is. Until the housing comes down, you're still going to have renters. And, I don't care if you've got a PhD and you teach at Caltech. If you're a renter, you're my customer, period. End of story. And so renters are growing, and renters are here to stay. They're a part of the fabric. So I think you'll see some laundromats starting to close. I think that the forecast, from what I understand on the rumor mill, is that DWP, which handles probably 60% of the market in Los Angeles, LA County, no, that's probably west or east of the 110 freeway.
It's Department of Water and Power. Just
what's that? DDP, Department of Water and Power.
Department of Water and Power, yeah.
They're going to start to double their sewer fees. So right now the sewer fees are exactly what the water fees are. So $4 per 100 cubic feet of water to buy, $4 to dump it in the sewer. That's going to go to $8. And that's really going to put the utilities at around a 34 to 35%, whereas a lot of people are enjoying 20%, 22% utility usage. So I think some of the smaller stores are going to take a hit. And if you don't re-equip and get it going right now, you're going to be stuck behind the eight.
Well, okay, and this is where I kind of want to leave us here, because I want to push a little bit harder on you still saying laundromats are a good asset, which, you know,
they are.
Spoiler alert, I agree. But I want to push you on that a little bit, because this is going to feel overwhelming here for a second. Equipment prices have gone through the roof. Interest rates are higher than ever. Utilities are higher than ever. Labor costs are higher than ever. Taxes don't look like they're going down. They're going up. Rents are going up. Landlords are, I've seen more and more landlords not wanting to sign long-term leases and have been a little more difficult to work with than in the past. All these things start stacking up. Are laundromats, despite all that, still a good asset class for people to consider? Because that's a lot that stacks up on us there.
Absolutely. If you added one factor in and said that the renter classification is being reduced annually, I would say now you have you know what the definition of a catastrophe is? Definition of a catastrophe in my book is a series of cataclysmic changes. Individually are not the problem. When combined, they become a catastrophe. It's like Mount Everest. I was tired, I didn't eat, and now I have lack of oxygen. I'm going to start okay. Same thing here. When our renter base starts to fade, we will have a problem. Until then, laundromats are still going to be a main fabric here. You're going to raise your prices. You're going to meet the demand. There's going to be fewer laundromats in the marketplace in 5 years than there are today. And those volumes are just going to go up. And you're going to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
We've been faced with this for quite some time, more aggressively now than before, but it's still here, and there's still a good, viable way to make money and a good return.
Yeah. And, I mean, I guess fortunately, but also kind of unfortunately, I mean, it looks like that renter demographic is not going anywhere, and if anything is going to probably grow
right
quicker than it has in the past. So awesome, man. Well, this has been good.
Thank you.
This has been great as always. I always love chatting. Thanks for jumping on today and talking laundromats, and let's do it again soon.
My pleasure. Hey, ask the audience, what do they want to talk about? And I'll be happy to sit down and chat with them about it no matter what. So,
hey, audience,
ask Andy.
Talk about. Shoot me an email, jordan@laundromatresource.com, and Andrew and I will talk about something, or maybe we'll bring on some other people. Maybe we'll do an 8-hour. Tell me if you want to do an 8-hour one. And
we can start with a 2-hour.
That'd be great. All right, we'll start with the 2-hour. I'm not like a start small and work up kind of guy. I'm just like, hey, let's just go.
If you got some people that want to kill time, listen, we'll be happy to do it in the afternoon. I'll maybe even pour myself a scotch.
Ooh. Have you ever seen the show Drunk History, which I think is hilarious, by the way? It's people who just get drunk and then they talk about history stories. Maybe we do Drunk Laundromat.
There you go.
That'd be great.
All right, Jordan.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. I know you got to go to a yoga class over there. So I'm assuming it's not goat yoga. Which you should try if you haven't yet. That'd be great.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.
I'm not even going to say today that I hope you enjoyed that. I know you did, because Andrew always brings it. So a huge shout out to Andrew for coming on the show. And real quick, just in case you're jiving with the things that Andrew's saying, did you know that you could book a call, one-on-one consulting call with Andrew at laundromatresource.com/coaching. So go check that out. If you need to talk laundromats, maybe you're buying one, or maybe you have one or multiple and you're looking to improve them or expand or whatever, you can talk to the man himself, laundromatresource.com/coaching. Pick something today, put it into action. Maybe that's booking a call with Andrew. Maybe that's something else that he said, but go put it into action. That's what's going to lead you to your goals and to success. Get out there and take some action. We will see you next week. Again, Jordan for the Laundromat Resource Podcast. Peace.